done. Ah! When given ruled paper, write the other way. Ray Bradbury. Fahrenheit 451 is the temperature at which books burn, hence the name. Now, Ray Bradbury, great author. Fahrenheit 451 is one of those books where everyone's like heard of but has never read. It's a book about firemen burning books. It's the book that people bring up when they're talking about banned books, censorship, and controlling information, right? So the basic premise of Fahrenheit 451 is pretty simple. Books are illegal. The government burns said books through the firemen, and censorship is bad. But the more you look at Fahrenheit 451, the more disturbing it really becomes. Because this book isn't just asking, what if firemen burned books? It's really just asking something worse. What if people stopped caring that books were being burned? And that's where the story gets uncomfortable, because our main character, Guy Montag, who I did not know was named Guy in the first place. I thought his first name was Montag. I thought everyone just called him Guy as a nickname because this book was written in the 50s. In his world, books are not just destroyed because some evil government randomly decided to hate literature. Books are destroyed because society became the kind of place where books really no longer fit. I had to just stop my dog from coming in my room because there was glass on the floor. Hence, in an emergency. In Fahrenheit 451, and just in the world in general, people want comfort, they want things fast, they want entertainment, they want simple answers. They don't really want disagreement, sadness, complexity, or anything that makes them really stop and think. And then, in one of the most ironic twists possible, Fahrenheit 451 itself became a book that people tried to restrict, edit, challenge, and remove. The book about censorship became the target of censorship. So before we get into the story and talk about the first disturbing thing about Fahrenheit 451, I'd like to say that the book did not just warn us about censorship, it became part of the exact argument it was warning us about. You can, if Ray Bradbury were to ever watch my YouTube video, you could imagine him saying right now, that's the point, right? That's the entire point. But to really understand why Fahrenheit 451 hit so hard, we need to really talk about where it came from. Fahrenheit 451 was published in 1953 by Ray Bradbury. Did I point to him? He's right there. This date really does matter. It's during the Cold War in America. People are afraid of communism. McCarthyism is, happening. And there is suspicion towards writers, artists, intellectuals, and basically anyone who might be connected to wrong ideas. But at the same time, television is booming. Killed the radio star, if you didn't know. Culture's changing, and people are really starting to worry about comfort, propaganda, and whether society is becoming more passive. So when Bradbury wrote Fahrenheit 451, he's not really talking about a simple book about book burning. He's really kind of writing about the culture of the times and how people are afraid of thought. And not just from the government's point of view, may I add. It's just from the average person's point of view. And this is the layman's book. It really it does a very good job at explaining the average person and how they might think, how they may go about their world. And I think it's really interesting. This is why, you should really read the book instead of the Cliff Notes, because it's more complicated than just like the simple version of government bans books and hates you. But it's really like, a darker world of how the people helped create a world where books are able to be banned and burned. They became annoyed by complexity and, deep thought and kind of offended of being disagreed with. And, addicted to distraction. Does that ring a bell? Huh? Are you scrolling or doing something else while watching this video? I'm sure a large sum of you are. And I can't even blame myself, because I would say I'd want this too, but I want life to be smooth and fast and painless, I just want it to be nice. But, books really, kind of kill that. Sometimes. It's I for one love audiobooks. I think they're the best thing to ever happen because I can read books whenever I'm like grocery shopping or driving. I hate sitting down and reading through this. I just feel like it's such a slog. Maybe it's cuz I'm not the best reader, but maybe it's because I'm so conditioned to being used to having everything fast and right there, having someone read it to me while I'm doing something else and thinking about a third thing. Why can't I just sit down and read a book anymore? I used to love doing it as a child, right? At this point, it's kind of where people kind of get Fahrenheit 451 wrong. It's not really only about a government saying, no more books. It's about a society slowly over time becoming allergic to them. Imagine the people from the introduction to the television to right now, right? That's a slow slog, I guess, for one person's life, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like, what, 70 years? Maybe a little bit more, maybe 80, almost 100, maybe. Like, over 100 years, the whole dichotomy of people kind of, I think that's the right word, of just changed. And something to think about. But that brings us to the story itself, Fahrenheit 451. If you haven't read the book yet, pause. Go read the book. It's super short. I'll tell you how many pages it has right now. It has like 237 pages. And the text is not that small. It's pretty big. The audiobook takes 5 hours. I finished this in a day. Maybe 2. I don't remember. I was on the train. It's really easy. So if you have not read Fahrenheit 451 and you don't want spoilers, stop here, stop the video here, go read the book, and come back. Now, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, I'm editing right now. If you're enjoying the video, I hope you like it. I don't have enough subscribers or viewers to get any sponsors yet, so hopefully one day I'll be able to. If you know anyone, there's a business email in my channel bio. Enjoy the rest of the video.
All right, now we're back, and this brings us to chapter 3 of my awesome video, which we talk about the story, which itself starts with one of the most famous opening ideas in dystopian literature: the fireman who starts fires. Like I said earlier, the main character of Fahrenheit 451 is Guy Montag. Fun fact, like I said, I didn't know his name was Guy. Silly. Montag is a fireman, but in this world, firemen don't put out fires, they start them. Their job is to find books, burn them, and burn the houses in which they are hidden. At the beginning of the story, Montag is not some secret rebel. He is not pretending to enjoy his job while secretly fighting the system. He likes it. Fahrenheit 451 opens with the idea that it was a pleasure to burn. That is important because Montag begins the story as someone fully inside the system, a cog in the machine, just living his day by day, waiting to punch out. Got a nice brewski. Maybe that sounds familiar, maybe it doesn't. He does not see himself as an evil. He does not see himself as brainwashed. He sees himself as a normal person doing a normal job, just getting a paycheck. And I don't blame him. Things are expensive. He has a nice job, has a stable income. He doesn't get paid that much, actually. He kind of gets on the short end there. But it's really just the creepiest parts of the book because he's just in there. He's just in the system, cog in the machine, not even questioning the fact at the beginning of the book. Spoilers! The world is already broken before Montag ever starts questioning it. So we don't actually know when this whole shift of the firemen really started. But there are some slight nods through some characters and Montag himself remembering when they were small children about books and how the world used to be and everything. But for the majority of Montag's life, we can only assume that this is the world as he knows it. Book burning is not treated like some shocking act of violence. It is treated like public service. Firemen are not hidden in some secret police force. They're as public, maybe even more public than firemen are right now in our time, 2026. And the firemen in Fahrenheit 451 are respected. They wear uniforms, they have rules, they have routines, and they have dope uniforms. Really cool. Um, but the nightmare is not hidden. It's really just normal. It's normal, and it's what makes this book feel a lot more dystopian, uh, like a normal dystopian. Because obviously it's dystopian. Like it's as dystopian as any other future book, but it's like Ready Player One or something. But it's a little bit more normal because the horror isn't really in your face. It's kind of just like no one is acting like there's a problem. It's just how it is. No one's like, oh man, I hate living in the stacks. It's just like, oh, there goes the fireman. Good job, boys. Let's keep on going. Uh, Everyone's just going to work, watching TV, driving really fast in jet cars. They take pills that like basically cure everything, and they just pretend like it's fine. It's really because it sounds like a good place to live. There's really nothing completely wrong on the surface level. There's some pretty bad things like being brainwashed, not really being able to go outside because you'll get hit by a car going like 1,000 miles per hour. Wars being fought over 10 minutes. They're called 10-minute wars. The wars are fought, started, and ended in 10 minutes. It's terrifying. You just see jets flying over. It's like, oh, there they go. But Montag's world starts to crack when he meets someone who does not fit into it at all. Montag meets one of my favorite characters in the entire book, Clarice McClellan, a teenage girl who seems very strange to Montag. Yeah, at the beginning of the book, I thought, is Montag going to be a pedophile? No, he's not. Clarice is just awesome. But the weird thing is, Clarice isn't really strange. She just walks outside, notices nature, talks to her family, and asks questions. She pays attention to the world around her. She's no different than me and you, right? Like, she's someone that we can put ourselves into in this novel and really understand what it's like to be a different person who, on paper, should be normal. But in Montag's society, in Fahrenheit 451, she is probably the most dangerous thing that can walk the earth. It's really just one of the darkest jokes in the book. The most normal human behavior is become suspicious. Nod back to, the whole Cold War era America thing. Clarice asks Montag, in probably my favorite line in the entire book, one of my favorite, it's up there, probably top 5. Clarice asks Montag, are you happy? Seems simple. It really is simple. But, I mean, if I walked up to someone right now, just like Clarice walked up to Montag and asked it, that question can destroy someone's life. Really, because they're in such a trance and they're not thinking about it, it could just weigh on them for a long period of time. And for Montag, that's exactly what it does. It destroys his life because up until that moment, Montag has been just moving through the world, really not looking at it. He has a job, a house, a wife, entertainment, a routine. On paper, he is supposed to be happy, right? You have all these things, and people say, oh, if I had this, I'd be happy. If I had that, I'd be happy. But you'd probably be the same thing. It's like the SNL skit with Adam Sandler. It's like, the same sad you here will just be the same sad you in Italy. Italy's not going to change it. You're still going to be sad. You're just going to be in Italy. There's no different. But when Clarice asks him that question, he really realizes has no idea what the answer is. He says that he's happy because he must be happy, right? He has a loving wife, and his wife loves him, so he thinks. But once he starts really thinking, he can't stop. It really just opens the floodgates of the whole thing. But this is what makes Clarice so important. She doesn't really hand Montag a manifesto of what she believes and how other people should believe her. She doesn't explain the entire system of how Montag is brainwashed and how society is collapsing. She doesn't really give him some grand revolutionary speech to change Montag completely. She just asks him a simple question that makes him pause. And in a society built on speed and distractions and just going, pausing is dangerous. And I really just love that Clarice doesn't really tear down the entire system. She just asks like an honest question and just is herself. Like she just loves walking around, asking questions, talking to people, observing nature. And it's just enough to break down to someone like Montag, and it's really just beautiful. But if Clarice represents someone who is awake in the world, Montag's wife, Mildred, represents the exact opposite. Mildred is probably one of the more disturbing characters in Fahrenheit 451, and you really feel bad for her because something's up, something's wrong, and Montag's kind of a horrible husband because he's not helping her when she obviously needs help. But at the beginning of the book, Montag comes home and finds that Mildred just overdosed on sleeping pills. She just takes a bunch of sleeping pills, which is a problem, and that's the first introduction of the character. The reader should automatically pick up that there is something going on in this relationship, in Mildred's mind and her own. Something is wrong. But he calls the hospital. Some medical workers come in, and they have these machines that are so invasive and disgusting, and they're just like smoking while doing it. It's like, yeah, this is normal, she'll be fine, we do this like 8 times a night. And when they say that, it kind of just like clicks in the reader's brain. It's like, whoa, this being normal and okay in this society kind of just really shows the levels to this thing of how people are living their lives. The next day, Mildred barely even remembers it, if she doesn't remember it at all. But that scene really does tell you everything that you need to know about Mildred. She's deeply, deeply unwell, and she doesn't even register that there is a crisis. And also, Montag, or Guy, doesn't even like bring it up to her, really. Like, he kind of just like withholds it, and he's like, I'm not gonna tell her, which is like weird. But again, they've been married for a while, so you don't know what they got going on in their relationship. They're probably not the best spot. However, Mildred spends most of her time with the parlor walls, parlor is just like a room where people sit down, and the walls are full immersive TV screens that you can like sit in. Like, imagine the whole wall being a screen where you couldn't even tell that it was a screen. And you can buy each wall, and the walls can say your name, they can wait for your reaction, they're listening to you, watching, giving you everything that you need to just keep you zoned in on the walls and nothing else going on in the world. And she watches this show called The Family, where they just walk in and out of this room, and there's a bunch of family members, and they talk to you when you're in this life, and it's just creepy and sad at the same time that you're just sitting there in that room, and this made-up family is talking to you when you have a real family in your house, and you just want to interact with these TV screens, when her husband is just standing right there, slowly having an existential breakdown about this teenager that lives right next to him, asking him if he's happy. But Mildred would rather talk to the fake people on the screens. Mildred isn't really forced to reject books. She doesn't need a fireman to scare her into being obedient under the government. She already does not want anything that makes her think. She talks and talks and talks about wanting more parlor walls, to just take out as much money as we can to put up a 4th wall, even though we just bought the 3rd wall. She wants to just be fully immersed in the parlor wall experience. Doesn't want to think about it. And you can tell by her taking the sleeping pills that when she's alone with her thoughts at night is probably when things start coming back to her, and she just wants to go to sleep, wake back up, go to the parlor, go to sleep, wake back up, go to the parlor, go to sleep, wake back up, go to the parlor, right? And so that's just terrifying. Eventually, when Montag brings books into the house later on in the book, which goes crazy style, find out that Montag's just been smuggling books the entire time and hiding them in the house. Mildred doesn't really see it as him trying to wake himself up to the horrors around him. She just sees it as a threat to the only world that she understands, that if someone finds these books in my house, they're gonna take my parlor walls away, right? This is why Mildred is almost more important than the main villain of the story, Captain Beatty. And we're gonna get into Beatty right after this, but Mildred just shows what the system does to a person, right? She's just living through it in waves, just going through the motions and not thinking at all. And it's terrifying because I would assure you that probably 99% of the population in Fahrenheit 451 are Mildred, right? They're all Mildred. And that's terrifying. They're slaves, basically. That's all it is. They're just slaves. But Mildred does not need the government to rip the books out of her hand. She would hand them willingly if it means that her screens could stay on. But now let's get into Captain Beatty, who, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting villains in media, period. I think he's so well written, and having a villain who is smart and knows a system and uses it to make him more powerful is just so terrifying. It's great. But Captain Beatty, let's give me Captain Beatty. He's Montag's boss at the firehouse, right? He's a fire captain. He loves burning books. He loves enforcing the system. So at first you'd expect him to just be like a simple authoritarian villain. It's like, we must burn books because it is the right thing to do. But he's not. He understands books probably more than anyone else in the book. More than Faber, more than Montag, more than Clarice. He's so well read when he's giving his monologues to Montag. It's like, it almost would put a tear to your eye that someone this smart could be so evil, you know? And I mean, leave it at that. He quotes literature, knows history, knows philosophy, and he knows the arguments. He knows exactly what society has lost, and that makes him even more terrifying because he's not ignorant. He's someone who knows what books are, and he still chooses to burn them. He wants to, like, hold all the information for himself and then close the door behind him. It's amazing. He explains that books made people uncomfortable. Different books said different things. Different writers offended different groups. Ideas contradict each other. People argue. People felt inferior. People felt confused. And society started flattening everything. Make it shorter. Make it simpler. Make it less offensive. Make it easier to consume. Remove the discomfort. Remove the contradiction. Remove the thought. And eventually books become the enemy. And this is all what Beatty says. Captain Beatty, the villain. He's telling the reader what happened, basically. How to do it. He's giving you the instructions. It's in front of you. Beatty's argument is disturbing because it's not random. It's just twisted version of convenience. He is basically saying people were happier when they don't have to think as much. And that's probably true, which is horrible. But this is why Beatty is such a well villain. He doesn't just say books are bad. He says books make people unhappy and we solved that problem. So I'll say this. The scariest villains are not always the ones who do not understand. Sometimes they understand perfectly and they still choose the wrong side. Which, is that not what a villain is? Where he's choosing to be bad? A villain that is accidentally bad is someone making a mistake. They can always change. But someone who knows this is bad and then keeps doing it anyways, that's where true evilness comes in. Beatty proves that knowing the truth and caring about the truth are not the same thing. This is where, in my opinion, Fahrenheit 451 becomes much bigger than just a story about burning books, because now it becomes a book about knowledge and four-dimensional chess, really, which don't even ask me to play. A very disturbing part of Fahrenheit 451 is that censorship is not really the beginning of the problem, it's just the end result. By the time that the firemen are burning all the books, society has already lost something very much deeper. Very much deeper. What the? People lost curiosity. They have lost attention. They lost empathy. They've lost their memory. There's a lot of people in this book that don't even remember what it was like before this happened. You know, and even Montag, like, he's asking, when do the firemen start? And when they start burning houses for books, and they said Benjamin Franklin invented the firehouse because houses were always fireproof and they needed to burn books. Benjamin Franklin! Whatever. This is like, I think this is another thing why Fahrenheit 451 is so terrifying. If you ever read The Shining, or even watched the movie, the monster is not really something you can see. I mean, yeah, there's, what's his name, Jack, right? Who's like, or, yeah, Jack, Johnny, that guy, here's Johnny. You know, he obviously becomes the villain, but like, the villain itself is the hotel and everything around it. And that's kind of the same thing with Fahrenheit 451. There's no like monster hiding in the shadows, like no like Frankenstein or Dracula around the corner, but the monster is like society and the society and the culture that has shifted, and that's what makes it terrifying. It's like a hive mind of people. You can't really pinpoint exactly what the bad thing is. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying. Not knowing what the monster is probably scarier than the monster being right in front of you. But even being written almost 100 years ago now, 70 years ago, uh, it still feels so modern. Like, you read some things in this book, it's like, wow, how did Ray Bradbury just get it right on the nose? You know, he predicted all the technology and how people would just be dull and numb because of it. Where, you know, creating a culture that needs everything right now. It's like, you know, everyone's a genius now because they have a computer in their pocket that has the power of a god, which is a little sacrilegious of me saying, but you open ChatGPT, everyone's a fucking genius now. Everyone, there's no reason to argue because you just, you know, here it is. And it's just like terrifying. But if something, especially now, something makes someone uncomfortable, the instinct is not really to wrestle with that feeling and learn it more. It's just to remove it. Just take it out of here. You don't like something, get it out of here. I'm not going to try and understand you. I'm going to just fucking get out of here. But Fahrenheit 451 gets even more uncomfortable than the reader would expect because it's easy to say, I would never burn books. But it's harder to really ask, do I actually want to be challenged by what I read? You know, like, if someone came up to you right now and said, burn this book, or I will burn your whole house down, would you give in? Would you resist? How would you feel? You know? Would you do everything in your power to protect knowledge, or would you just move on with your life? And I think, you know, some circumstances come with some answers, but really, you know, deep down, if you had to make a choice, what would you do? Let's talk about Fahrenheit 451 being banned now for a second. We really talked about the general overview of the book without spoiling too much, getting into some characters. But let's talk about the book about banning books getting banned, right? It's been challenged and restricted so many times, and it's almost too ironic. You know, people object to the language, to the violence, to the religious references. In my personal opinion, Fahrenheit 451 is just a retelling of the story of Christ. Call me crazy. But the fact that the only book that Guy saves is the Bible, or the Book of Revelations, I think he tried memorizing. I don't know. I think there's an argument to be there. I think that's another video, though. You know, people have objected to making the book uncomfortable for some students. I think this is like a necessary read for high school students. I don't think people in middle school would even understand it. I think it'd be exciting. But, you know, Stay to the Lost Boys and To Kill a Mockingbird and stuff, I think that's easy to digest and take the themes there. To Kill a Mockingbird, one of my favorite books, by the way. But with Fahrenheit 451, not every book is for every age level, like I said. But the irony is kind of impossible to ignore. If you are going to teach this book, I think irony is the first thing that you should teach. It's a book warning about what happens when society removes difficult ideas because they're uncomfortable. And then people turn around and say the book itself is too uncomfortable, which that's the point. The whole point is that it's uncomfortable. But it does not mean that every criticism of the book is automatically wrong. Obviously, there are some criticisms to be had about Fahrenheit 451, but it doesn't disprove Bradbury's point in any way, really. Because the book argues that censorship often does not begin with people saying, we hate knowledge. It begins with people saying, this upsets me. This is offensive. This is too much for me to handle. This makes me uncomfortable. Can we make it cleaner? Can we make it easier? Can we make it safer? Let's take Jesus out of this, right? And eventually, if you follow that logic too far, you end up having nothing left to challenge. And then there's no words in the book anymore. It's blank. There's only blank pages in my book. What happened? Oops, all blank. But this is what makes Fahrenheit 451 so perfect for a banned book discussion. You know, the controversy around it basically becomes part of the book, you know. Oops, more book. But I do think that the modern connection is as simple as saying phones are bad. It is more complicated than that, obviously. You know, phones are good because I can call my child if there's an emergency and I can know where they are. Phones are bad because now my child is on TikTok 12 hours a day. And probably getting some horrible addictions to some certain things. Um, a lot of people connect Fahrenheit 451 to modern technology, and it makes sense. You know, the parlor walls feel like giant TVs, Mildred's seashell radios feel kind of like earbuds, and the constant entertainment feels eerily familiar in a way that's like, this guy was probably psychic, Ray Bradbury. But I think saying that Bradbury predicted phones or predicted social media is too simple. Um, I think anyone that thinks hard enough can really predict the way that some things will be inserted eventually. Like, obviously, there's going to be a personal device in my pocket one day, and I will be connected to people, right? I think the scariest thing about what Ray Bradbury predicted and wrote was the type of culture that we live in, where people are constantly stimulated but not fulfilled, always connected, but probably the most lonely a generation has ever been, or society's ever been. Everything is shorter, faster, louder, and easier to consume. I mean, hence all of the stupid scrolling short form media, movies being shorter, books being easier to digest, TV shows being written horribly, every news outlet, playing just for the best headline at the earliest convenience. Where, I mean, I'm sure the majority of people that say they read the news just read the headline and move on with their lives. Like, whatever happened to the newspaper? I don't know. But really, in my opinion, I think the most eerie, I'll use the word again, eerie, thing that Ray Bradbury predicted was a culture where silence feels unbearable. The amount of times I have driven someone home from work or so on, and they need music to be playing. I like driving with no music sometimes. I like the silence. I don't need to listen to Drake going, a lot of bad things, but they wish and 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 me. Yeah. You say, do you love me? I tell her only partly. I don't need that sometimes. The danger is not technology itself. It's technology can be useful, like I said earlier. I want to be able to call my children when I have them some days. I want them to call me if there's a problem. That's great. But entertainment is not automatically bad, too. I think that's another point that I should make. I love watching TV. I've watched 4 seasons of Better Call Saul in the past almost 2 weeks. It's amazing. It's so good. But, watching TV or looking at your phone doesn't mean you're living in Fahrenheit 451. You're not like a slave to the man. But the danger becomes when the distraction becomes the main way people avoid reality. Like, if you're scrolling your phone all day and then overdose on sleeping pills when you're sleeping, just so you can not be alone with your thoughts, maybe there's a problem. Maybe there's a problem. Uh, but, when people use entertainment to avoid grief, thought, and hard conversations, politics, history, and avoid themselves, they become Mildred. You are Mildred. Oops, all Mildred. That's you. That's when society becomes Fahrenheit 451. That's when you're living in that society. So, let me wrap that point up. But, screens, it's not about screens existing. Screens are screens. We're always going to have them. That's just how it is right now. I'm looking at a screen right now with my face on it, I look like a crazy person. By the way, I wore orange because Fahrenheit 451. So, thought it'd be dope. But, being having the slave mindset to the man and being engrossed in all these screens has become it's when it becomes easier to deal with the screens and entertainment than it is your own life. You should deal with the things you want on your life. You shouldn't. Distractions are okay sometimes, not all the time. I think it's really easy to say that the people should be like terrified of the firemen, and people in our world should be terrified of a group that represents what the firemen are in Fahrenheit 451. I think the real thing an audience should be afraid of is a group that wants the fire. You know, it shouldn't be, oh, this group is going around and burning all these books. It should be all these people that are egging them on to keep burning books. You know what I mean? Maybe that point could use some work, but I think there is something to it. But spoilers. At the end of the book, Montag escapes the city in an amazing chase, which is probably one of my favorite scenes of the book, where Montag says the circus must go on, and he even becomes entranced in watching the chase scene of himself on someone's TV through their window, and he's like, oh my god, I just got so distracted, I gotta keep running. But, you know, he runs away from this mechanical hound, crosses a river, leaves behind the entire world as he knows it, and eventually, due to his help of his friend Faber, old college professor, that's going to help him print more Bibles, which hopefully he's still alive at the end of that book. He finds a group of people living outside the society, like a bunch of hobos, that are preserving books by memorizing them. They're not hiding books, they've become the books, where, you know, if you want to get rid of the book, you got to get rid of them at that point, and you can't prove it. So one person in the group remembers one text, another remembers another. They carry words inside themselves. So one day, when society is ready again, the books can return. Word of mouth is the way that they're gonna teach it to their children, who will teach it to their children. And some words will be lost, but that's okay because the general idea will stay. And when society is ready, and that's a big when and a big if society will be ready, eventually there will be something of a book ready for them, so not all intellect is lost. And the ending of Fahrenheit 451 is not exactly the happiest. The city gets nuked, basically. A giant nuke falls in the city. Montag's wife, Mildred, dies. His home gets blown up. He has no job. And everything before Montag, if you thought he lost it, it's gone completely now. But there's still hope because the books aren't gone. Society can still come back. The fire may have destroyed the paper, but it did not destroy the memory. I think that's Bradbury's final answer, personally. I mean, it could definitely be a couple things. But the opposite of censorship is not owning books, hence break if emergency, more like burn if emergency. I thought that was a funny thing. There's glass everywhere, by the way. The opposite of censorship is not just owning books, it is remembering them, understanding them, talking about them, passing them on. Read something and tell two people about it, and they'll tell two people about it. A book does not matter just because it sits safely on a shelf. It matters because someone cares enough to carry the meaning of it forward. I think the ending's very powerful. Having a big boom at the end of it. Having a bunch of scholars and laymen remembering the books that matter to them because they want to tell them to generations after. It's suggesting that if a culture destroys itself, meaning itself can survive through the people. So when some person will say Fahrenheit 451 is about censorship, they're right. It is about censorship. But it's only part of the book. You know, there's deeper meanings in every literature, every piece of literature. Fahrenheit 451 isn't only about censorship, it's about distraction, numbness, comfort. It's about people being so afraid of difficult ideas that they'd rather live in a fake world rather than a real one. Because the firemen are not the beginning of the nightmare. That's why the book is more disturbing than you may think. The firemen are the final step. Before a book burns, curiosity burns, attention burns, memory burns, conversation burns. The desire to actually understand another person burns. And by the time the flames get to the books, most people are too distracted to even care. That's the real horror of Fahrenheit 451. Not that a society is losing its books and knowledge, but that it's lost a part of itself, that new books mattered. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, pick up the book. Maybe I can get an affiliate link or something, maybe not. And consider subscribing, liking the video. Our next video is going to be on the Jersey Devil, where I will be going to New Jersey and trying to find out the reasoning behind it. But if you like this video, why don't you check out some more? Thanks.